came up closer. So I'm asking everyone to start filling up from the front seats backwards. Please, come closer. We're too scattered. Mr. Wint and Mr. Pitt, come closer, come closer. Mrs. Bell and company to your right, can you come closer, please? The lady behind you, kindly come closer, please. We reserve seats for you up front. Mrs. Bell. Mrs. Bell? All right, as our moderator indicated, we had planned to start at 4 o'clock, and we thought we were ready, but the technical people, you're live now? So I'm live now? Oh. Can I put on my best smile now? All right, I think we're ready to go now, ladies and gentlemen. And at this point, I'll hand over to the moderator. We just had some extra work to do because the meeting this afternoon, is being broadcast live by PBC. So, Ms. Donna Reed, back over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Custos Green. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is indeed a pleasure to be here. And although we are, what should I say, we're not few, we're a little more than few. We're going to have a good discussion this evening. And, gone are the days when we can, turn a blind eye to what's going on around us. We, of course, a village, well, in times gone by, a village would raise the children. And, of course, everybody would look out for everybody, for the other person, looking out for somebody. But nowadays, we are of, the opinion that it's an informal culture. We have that kind of culture. And so we want to change that narrative. And so this afternoon we're here, and our theme tells us that we're strengthening community trust through accountability and collaboration. I'm happy to have you. And without further ado, I'm going to invite our Custos, the best Custos in Jamaica, to come and give his greetings.
Oh my goodness. Thank you, Ms. Reed, our moderator. I will acknowledge the Honorable Delroy Chuck, who should be joining us virtually, our Minister of Justice, Mr. Hugh Faulkner, Commissioner of Indiccom, and main presenter for this afternoon. Esteemed Justice of the Peace from Manchester and across Jamaica, happy to have you. Members of the media, good afternoon. And may I say colleagues, custodies as well, along with their JPs from other parishes. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Sound a little better. Can I get a one more? Now we're going to do it together. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, man. I like the spirit. That's what I want, you know. I like when I'm talking to my people, they speak back to me, eh? So I love that. I am really delighted to welcome you to the first quarterly meeting of the Manchester Justice of the Peace Association. The plan is to have quarterly meetings, and this happens to be the first one as we seek to unite and strengthen the Manchester Justice of the Peace Association. At the end of our presentations, and I said the minister should be addressing us virtually, we will field questions from you, so the minister should be available to answer some of the questions. Mr. Faulkner himself will be here, and your Custos will also take questions from you. I want to take this moment to address our esteemed JPs on some important matters regarding your offices. Under the Justice of the Peace Act 2018, and I want us to listen carefully because I have quite a few JPs here. And by the way, I want to acknowledge the presence of Miss Felicia Campbell. You will see someone signing to her. She is the first deaf person to be commissioned as a Justice of the Peace. We wanted her to serve that community. So please acknowledge her. Yes, so under the Justice of the Peace Act 2018, JPs are entrusted with an important responsibility, which is to submit your annual reports. The annual report is something that is required from every Justice of the Peace, and it is due at the Custos' office by the 31st of January each year. These reports are vital to ensuring transparency and effectiveness in your duties. To date, and this was up to last night, 98 reports are outstanding. So we have quite a bit of delinquent JPs. I have to submit 2 reports each year, one by the 31st of January and one by the 31st of March, to King's House and the Ministry of Justice. The information that you will provide by submitting your report is needed to do my report. Right? The Act also speaks to action that can be taken, but we don't want to go there. What I'm asking our JPs to do is to simply comply. Comply. Years gone by, we have had 100% compliance. How did we achieve that? By calling every single person. Well, not everyone, but most. Because some persons readily complied. And we visited some, we called some, but we can't do it every year. Year on year, we can't do it. So I want you to take on, I don't know if I should say take on responsibility, because you already took it on by allowing yourself to be commissioned. You're not hearing? Mr. IT, they said they're not hearing me clearly. Right, so bear in mind, ladies and gentlemen, that your annual report is very important for you to submit it to the Office of the Custos by the 31st of January each year. Additionally, under the new dispensation, because the government has made some changes to the service of JPs, the administration of our duties, and all JPs are required to replace their seals with the updated seals. The government came up with a new design. Those who were commissioned recently, no need to worry. We're referring to persons who are serving as JPs from way back. Yes? So they came up with a new design of the seal that JPs must use. The old seal would have Manchester written on it. The new seal will have Jamaica. And why that is so, JPs are no longer confined to the parish in which they were commissioned. except for judicial duties, you can function outside of your parish. But you are not allowed to carry out judicial functions outside of Manchester. So the seal, the new seal, which will carry a new number, and it will have Jamaica written on it instead of Manchester. To date, 13 JPs have not come forward to replace their seals. And we are reminding those 13 persons, those 13 justices of the peace, to bring their seals in so we can have them replaced. Those seals will soon become, I hear people saying it. Say it, man. Obsolete. Yes. So shortly from now, anything you sign and affix that seal, it will be rejected. So maybe the 13 delinquent persons are not here, but I know word goes around. So please spread the word and encourage those who have not come in to exchange their seals to do so with immediate effect. I spoke earlier about this new dispensation, and I want us to acknowledge a transformation within the justice of the peace system. There have been some changes that were made, and under the instruction of the government of Jamaica, each parish is required to establish a JP association. So let me speak for Manchester. Our JP association is known the Manchester Justice of the Peace Association. And it was established as a sole body that has responsibility for overseeing the work of every JP. Once you are commissioned as a Justice of the Peace, you are automatically a member of the Manchester Justice of the Peace Association. This will ensure a streamlined and unified approach to the vital services that you provide within the parish, and I'm hoping that Minister Chuck will address this further when he comes online to educate all of us. Now, some JPs were commissioned by me in January of this year. Many of them have approached me trying to understand the difference between the Manchester Justice of the Peace Association, the Lay Magistrates Association of Jamaica, because they are being asked to come over and join, and it's creating some amount of confusion. And I will say that. But I'll go further to say, anyone in this room can join any association you wish to join. If you want to be a member of the Lay Magistrates Association of Jamaica, that's fine. Likewise, if you want to be a member of Kiwanis Club, that's fine. If you want to be a member of Rotary Club, that's fine. Right? Any association you want to join, that's fine. But bear in mind that none necessarily, or no other association apart from the parish association will be the body to represent you as Justice of the Peace. So being a member of any other organization will have no bearing on you serving as a Justice of the Peace. And I want all of us to bear that in mind, because as JP, we must be unified. We are the people who are saying to members of our community, live peacefully. We intervene in things out there. We want to mediate. Be united as a family. As community members, live together in peace. We have to lead by example. Agreed? Yes, man. We must lead by example. So, guys, I want you to know that. Take note of it. And please know that once you are commissioned, you are a member of the Manchester Justice of the Peace Association. For the purpose of this meeting, we want to highlight the indispensable contribution, and note the word indispensable, contributions of our Justices of the Peace, the police force, and Indiccom, as three critical institutions working tirelessly to ensure justice, safety, accountability, and trust within our nation. Every day we continue the work of building a nation rooted in fairness, justice, accountability, trust, and collaboration. Your commitment to your roles is essential to the prosperity and safety of our communities. And many JPs can give you examples of how you contribute to the safety of our community. Anyone want to give any examples? I see some head nodding, but can you stand and give an example? You work with the police. Many JPs in here work with the police, right? You visit police stations, you visit police lockups, yes? You ensure that witnesses are treated fairly when they are giving statements to the police. They are justices of the peace who take reports from members of the communities who are afraid to go to the police. So the information is passed on to JPs, and JPs bring those bits of information to the police. I know of JPs here who intervene in disputes in their communities. Don't take your role as Justice of the Peace lightly. We are all very important people carrying important roles in our communities. So I want to thank you for your dedication and your commitment to the shared mission of serving our people, protecting their rights, providing justice to everyone. Our police stands between us and those who seek to disrupt the peace and security that we hold dear. Their mandate to protect, serve, and reassure is one of the highest forms of public service. Yet we know that accountability is essential to ensuring trust and mutual respect between the police and the people whom they serve. Given those challenges, there are successes coming out of the police force that we must celebrate. There are reports of arrest that bring justice, operations driven by intelligence to prevent crime, and initiatives that reassure our communities of our safety. These are victories that deserve recognition and remind us of the indispensable role that the police play in our society. Can we give them a round of applause? But in this all, Indiccom, and we have the commissioner here with us, plays a vital role in upholding the accountability of the police force to ensure that actions are transparent and measured against clear rules and standards. However, at times there have been concerns raised regarding Indiccom's approach to police investigations, with critics suggesting that their scrutiny may hinder the work of law enforcement. Such comments, ladies and gentlemen, often express frustration, emphasizing the challenges faced by police in high-pressure situations and the potential perception of investigations undermining their efforts. Let me declare my hand from now that I strongly support Indiccom, and I strongly support the police force, and I strongly support our Justice of the Peace. We are all important in ensuring peace, trust, accountability, justice in our communities. While these concerns highlight an important dialogue about balance and fairness, we must also recognize that accountability is not the enemy of effective policing, but it is its ally. It is not only reasonable for us to give support to both the police and Indiccom, but it is also absolutely necessary. Because I'm sure that because of Indiccom's involvement in some of our police operations, right, at the tail end, maybe can say we get better performances from the police. But it is very important to have Indiccom serving as an oversight body. Together, we are all responsible, and when I say all, we are all, referring to the police, justice of the peace, and Indiccom, to represent the pillars of a society rooted in safety and justice. Mr. Hugh Faulkner, Commissioner of Indiccom, is here to enlighten us on a partnership that fosters trust, strengthens relationships, and paves the way for a thriving nation where all citizens feel safe. Let us welcome him to Manchester. In closing, I strongly declare my support, which I did earlier, for our justice of the peace, the police, and Indiccom. I want that to be on the record, so it's worth repeating. Yes? Their contributions, though distinct, are equally crucial to the health and prosperity of our nation. Let us move forward together, ladies and gentlemen, with determination and purpose as we work together to foster collaboration, accountability, and trust in building a brighter future for all. Thank you very much for being here, and I do hope that we'll have a very productive meeting as we listen to the Commissioner of Indiccom. Thank you.
Thank you, Custos. Let's give him another round of applause. So I'm happy to be a part of the Manchester Justice of the Peace Association. And we're making a commitment, sir, that we're going to reach, each one will reach one. And so we'll call out each other so that we are accountable, so that our duties will be performed in a way that is above board. Let's continue to build trust first in our homes, and of course we'll extend it into our communities, and of course extend it into our parishes, and eventually in Jamaica, land we love. Justice of the peace, let us be the nuclei, and of course revolving around the nuclei. For those of us, I'm a scientist, so revolving around us now, we have Indiccom, we have the police, we have the army, we have members of our community, and I'm sure this collaboration will be fruitful. Now, I'm going to invite the Commissioner of Indiccom, Mr. Hugh Faulkner, and I want you to give him a Manchester welcome, Mr. Faulkner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me observe the courtesies that I was taught to observe.
Ladies and gentlemen, just a shift in our program. The Honorable Delroy Chuck, he's online, and so we're going to take him before we listen to Commissioner Faulkner.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, JP Donna Reed. I'm sorry that not to be in Manchester, Mandeville, but all the day I have been having meetings, and probably will be having another meeting. Many of you who are listening will know it's still a season coming up, And so even after my presentation, I have to go back to a few meetings in the community. But I won't be long because I know most people would like to hear Mr. Hugh Faulkner as he discusses the role of Indiccom. And you may know that I played quite a significant role in the setting up of Indiccom. So I'm very supportive of Indiccom. And indeed, you may know that Mr. Hugh Faulkner was with me, and I encouraged him to become the Commissioner of Indiccom. And he's clearly doing an excellent job at Indiccom. I had the opportunity to listen to Custos Green, and in many ways, he has said many of the things I want to say about the JP Association, and I certainly endorse most of what he has said. I also welcome online over 250 persons who have joined us, including a number of custodians, and I recognize so far Custos Ian Forbes and Custos Perrin from Westmoreland. And I see the new Custos to be commissioned tomorrow, Mr. Lennox Jackson online. So, you know, I see he's already started even before his commission. I will be at his commissioning tomorrow at King's House. But this evening is about Indiccom and Mr. Hugh Faulkner. When I saw that he was going to make a presentation, I intimated to my office that we must open it up to allow as many justices of the peace around the island to participate. Because as justices of the peace who are online and those who are in the audience will know, I am very keen that we have a regular sensitization program, not only to empower, but also to inform our GPs about the different government roles that the various departments, commissioners, the various personnel in our country perform. We have had a commissioner of police. We certainly will have many others, the president of the Court of Appeal, the Chief Justice. All of these persons, we will be invited to make presentation so that the JPs can be better informed, not only of the roles performed by other individuals in government roles, but also to better allow the JPs to perform their roles. Now, the JP Association, and the Manchester JP Association in particular, is definitely performing the role it was intended to perform. And that is to assist the police and other stakeholders to ensure peace, good order, and the well-being of citizens within the parish. It is important that the JP Association see their role not only in signing documents and in generally meeting personnel and being outstanding citizens. We certainly hope that together as a body, they can collectively assist one another to bring about a better parish and a better Jamaica. Certainly what Custos Green has said, I endorse. It is important for all JPs to participate in the activity of the parish association. And that is why Custos Green has emphasized the importance of persons to be in touch with the executive and himself. All JPs within the parish must understand that they're entitled and in fact should be a functioning member of the JP Association. Because together, collectively, when you work with the police and other stakeholders, so much more can be achieved within your parish. There are so many roles that you can perform. I see every single justice of the peace across Jamaica as being the face of justice, the face of peace, the face of decency, the face of civility within your parish and within Jamaica. It is important, therefore, JP, for you to understand that when you are in the community, whether it is in your home or you travel on the street, that you represent the face of a good Jamaican, the face of justice. Now, there's no doubt that this Minister of Justice has imposed on all of you some heavy burden. and I will increase your burden even more. I would like to urge each of you, where possible, to become a restorative justice facilitator. There's training for restorative justice facilitators. A mediator, there's training for mediators, and we have got the DRF, that the Dispute Resolution Foundation, to perform the role of training. I know there's a backlog in terms of the various roles to be completed and certification. We have victim services, and so many victims of crime and abuse and assault need counseling, comfort, someone to talk to. So we hope that more GPs, where possible, can become counselors who can comfort those persons who have suffered from abuse or been a victim of crime, or in fact, just want someone to talk to. Then we also have mentors. Our children, far too many of our children, are living lives without proper parental background and support. And that is why we have child diversion, and we are encouraging more justice of the peace, where possible, to be trained as mentors. I have spoken to so many GPs who have been mentors, and believe me, they express the satisfaction, the real satisfaction of having the opportunity to mentor young boys and girls who have gone astray. So, if possible, please participate and assist the Ministry of Justice and Jamaica to assist those in need. We also have training for GPs to become lay magistrates. And in truth, up to this week, we graduated an additional 15 Justice of the Peace. And we are constantly and will continue to train lay magistrates. Now, lay magistrates, first and foremost, are GPs. The body in each parish of lay magistrates, they are not independent of the GP Association. They are not separate from the GP Association. And if they at any time feel that they should have their function without informing the custodies, it is not only wrong, but the custodies will express his or her dissatisfaction that they're having meetings without informing the custodies. Because every function being performed by any body of GPs, whether it is in the different regions, they should be in communication with the GP executive and with the custodians. I'm aware that in some parishes there's still this friction that lay magistrates feel that they should have a separate organization. They are not a separate organization, and I've made it very clear that they are part of the GP Association of every parish. And I'm going to make it fundamentally clear that if they try to be a separate organization, I will not support them in any way. Now, the GP Association, each parish has one, and the Ministry of Justice would like to strengthen and empower them. And that is why we have offered so far $1 million to these GP associations so they can properly assist members where they're performing functions outside the normal course of duties, including if they serve for a day in the spirit license or in the lay magistrates court, or in case of restorative justice and mediation, they are paid separately by the Ministry of Justice when they engage in functions of restorative justice and also mediation. But if there are other functions that the GP Association asks a GP to perform, which is outside their normal course of duty, maybe to go to a school and speak about the association, speak about the role of GPs, and they can be given a reimbursable stipend. Not a problem, because we say we have started out with $1 million per year, and if it is utilized, because GP represent the Ministry of Justice, we would like to support and assist them in any possible way. Now, as I indicated, all GPs with the proactive support of the executive of this parish, and in this case the Manchester JP Association, should engage and energize the JPs to really work to improve the quality of life of Jamaica. At this time, the main challenge to us in Jamaica is the crime, the corruption, the illicit problems, the littering of our street, the disorder in our communities. Now, I don't expect JPs to perform the work, but they can work with the police, work with other stakeholders to see how best we can bring about a greater cooperation, collaboration, so that the parishes, especially the towns, can be better organized and function for the upliftment of our citizens. When we look at what has been happening, say, with crime in our society, it is something, justice of the peace, those who are online and those who are in the audience, that we have to play some role. All Jamaicans must assist the police to not only ensure that the murder rate continues to go down, but also to ensure that gunmen, criminals, scammers, wrongdoers have no safe haven. I want to say that there are far too many communities that are harboring and sheltering criminals. And justice of the peace, I beg of you, urge those around you that we must not give any safe space or haven to those who are wrongdoers and who want to destroy Jamaica. Last year, well, in 2022, murders went down by 8%. Last year, by 19%. This year so far, it is down 35%. But that's still not enough. We want it to go down higher. And I do watch the figures. And so far, up to yesterday, Manchester had 7 murders less than last year. Up to yesterday, this time last year, Manchester had 11 murders, and so far this year, 4. So there's a 7 less murders, and we hope that there won't be many more, if not no more, than the 4 that Manchester has. In fact, across the island, there is 99 less murders up to yesterday than last year. 284 up to last year this time, as against 185 yesterday. 99 murders less, 35% reduction. We still, justice of the peace, those who are online and listen, we cannot be complacent. Human life is precious. There's no reason for anyone to take it without justifiable cause, such as self-defense or any other legitimate reason. And we will discuss briefly when we get to Indiccom. May I just say, justice of the peace, it is important for you to work closely with other stakeholders, especially the police, to see how we can get the guns off the street. The police has and continues to do an excellent job in removing the thousands of guns and ammunition so far over the last couple of years and so far this year. These are the guns, many of which were responsible for many of the murders in the past, and that is what is causing the murder rate to go down. But if we can get more of these guns in the communities off the street, then we can get even less murders being committed. So I'm begging, in your own small way, collectively, individually, if you can let that message be sent to young men in particular, that having a gun has no positive, beneficial effect to assist them. And I put it better. When they have a gun, they pose a clear and present danger, not only to themselves, but to their families and their associates. You can see when other gunmen retaliate or try to take revenge, they don't care who they shoot. And many bystanders, including family members, are actually injured or killed. And it is because when anyone has a gun and a retaliation takes place, then more lives are affected than just the person with the gun. In all sincerity, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know why is it that so many of our young men feel that possessing a gun empowers them. It is absolutely important for us to send that signal to them that owning a gun is not beneficial and it poses danger to themselves because other gunmen may come for them. But moreover, once you have a gun, the police has a duty to try to recover it. And when the police knows of community or a person having a gun and they go in to recover that gun, then take it from me, not only does the police have a duty to defend themselves, like all of us, the police has a duty to defend themselves, but they also have an additional duty to apprehend the gunman, which we don't have that duty. But the police have a duty to apprehend persons with a gun if it's an illegal gun. And therefore, when they confront a gunman who has an illegal gun, it is the hope and duty of that gunman to surrender. But if he takes on the police, then the police must use reasonable force to apprehend him. And what is the law? The law says you must not use excessive force, you must use reasonable force to apprehend criminals. No doubt, if the criminal is using a toothpick, you don't expect the police to be using deadly force. But if the criminal has a gun, it may well be that deadly force is in fact reasonable force. And that is the law. And that is why Mr. Hugh Faulkner will tell you that in 80 or 90% of the cases, they're able to say justifiable force was used even though the gunman was killed, because deadly force is reasonable force when confronted with a gunman who has a gun. It is just the rule of law that reasonable force must be used. And if the reasonable force requires deadly force, the law will exonerate a police officers who apprehends a criminal who has a gun. So it is not in the interest of our young men especially to have guns. First of all, if they surrender and they're apprehended, they're going to spend time in jail. It is now 15 years. So beg the mothers, the sisters, the women in the lives of these gunmen to encourage these gunmen, give up the gun. Don't keep it in you. It poses a danger not only to themselves, but to you, mothers, sisters, girlfriends, because Jamaica must become a peaceful place. And that is why I urge you all to understand the balance, which is what Custos Green spoke about. How do you deal with the gunmen in a community who the police must try to find and protect the communities from them? And if the balance means that they surrender, fine. But if they fail to surrender, the police must use such reasonable force to put them in custody. So I want to urge all of you to question Mr. Faulkner. He will give his statistics, and I hope he will let you know that to the best of my knowledge, although there have been many fatal shootings by the police, there's no doubt that a significant amount of them are justifiable. The evidence so far has not demonstrated until the evidence is collected that anyone was unjustifiable. And if it is unjustifiable, Indiccom has played a good role in demonstrating who should be charged if they go beyond the use of reasonable force in the circumstances. So this government certainly support Indiccom because we know they do appropriate, proper investigation to ensure that the police act within the rule of law. But I just want to make it very clear, we must support the police, we must work with the police, and I beg of you, I repeat, the gunmen, the criminals, all of them must not be allowed any safe space in any community, because Jamaica deserves to be a peaceful, civil, orderly, kind, and gentle place. I want to wish you all some good questioning of Mr. Faulkner after he makes his presentation, and all the best to you. And those of you who are online, remember you can pose your question, and I'm sure the moderator will pick them up appropriately. So Hugh, sorry to keep you waiting, but I'm sorry that I'm not out there with you, but I know you will have a good presentation and you will be able to respond to all the questions which I know will be coming at you very soon after. So thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you, Minister. JPs, our roles are extensive. We have been called out, and so we must serve our community with pride, with dignity, and we have quite a lot to do. Without further ado, I'm going to again invite Mr. Faulkner to come, and at the end of his presentation, we will have our questions and answering session. Mr. Faulkner.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for that warm welcome. So let me first acknowledge the Custos, and I think protocol would require me to do so. The Custos is a representative of the Governor General. The Governor General is the head of state, so I recognize you, Custos. And then I recognize the Honorable Minister. The Minister is part of the Executive of Government. I do acknowledge. I recognize the Justices of the Peace, and I too commend you on the work you have been doing. To the distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for the introduction from Madam Chair. Good afternoon. Now I see an even spread of ages, which is very good. Right. In my days as a youngster in St. Elizabeth, JPs were only senior people, but I see a lovely mix of persons. And for that reason, I believe I'll commence my presentation by just giving a short synopsis on the formation of Indiccom. And one of the watershed moments from my perspective, ladies and gentlemen, was the killing of Michael Gale. Michael Gale was a citizen of West Central St. Andrew, and he had encountered a joint police military checkpoint, and Mr. Gale was I trust you're hearing me a little better now. Right. So Mr. Gale had encountered a joint police military checkpoint. From my understanding, and his deceased mother, Miss Jenny Cameron, was a great advocate on his behalf. Coming out of that interaction, Mr. Gale was beaten, and he subsequently died. Miss Cameron sought justice for her son, Michael, and with the help of Jamaicans for Justice at the time, Mrs. Caroline Gomes, they sought to get judicial attention for the matter, but the matter eventually went to the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights. So in my view, which identified a gap in Jamaica. A citizen of Jamaica dies, and the family has to seek recourse externally. So that showed us that something was missing. The Inter-American Commission for Human Rights, they provided their report, and they were scathing to all of us. You know, none shall escape the judgment, as the song says, but they were scathing on our island, Jamaica. They indicated that it was unlikely for an investigation carried out by the security forces to identify culpability amongst their ranks. And in fact, what the Inter-American Commission of Human Rights was identifying is what you and I would term as the squaddy mentality. So in other words, the investigation, they believe, would not show the diligence, the thoroughness, and the probative diligence that it should. And they believe that justice could not be had unless Jamaica established an independent body to investigate matters involving the security forces. And ladies and gentlemen, it seems as if the legislature and the executive were listening, because in 2009, the act came to Parliament, and in 2010, Indiccom commenced operations. The Prime Minister then was the Honorable Bruce Golding, but from my recollection, the bill and subsequently the act received support from both sides of the House. And I think that was an important development. Before Indiccom, there was the Police Public Complaints Authority. And notwithstanding the good wishes or the good intentions, that body did not attract the public trust and confidence. So the PBCA was repealed, and the Independent Investigations Commission was formed, and that's the birth of Indiccom. So especially for the younger JPs, just a little background to the formation of Indiccom. Now, Indiccom is an independent civilian oversight body. If you look in the United States, even in one state, I went to a conference in Texas, and within Texas, Austin, Fort Worth, Dallas, each had a different system of oversight for the police. Each had a different system. And in most cases, their system involved a political representative, city councilman, and somebody from the security forces, usually referred to as an inspector general. But our model, the model that we're speaking about, ladies and gentlemen, is an independent civilian oversight body. Independent because Indiccom does not have a board appointed by a minister, and we do not report to a minister. We are a commission of Parliament. So you may hear on the news that Indiccom tabled its report in Parliament because we don't submit our reports through a minister. But we're thankful to the Ministry of Justice. Administratively, if we have cabinet submissions to make, it is done administratively through the Ministry of Justice, but we do not report to a minister. We file our reports, table our reports in Parliament through the Speaker of the House of Representatives and the President of the Senate. So we are independent also because our act states that we take direction from no authority. We are civilian because none of our investigative staff can be a serving member of the security forces. And in fact, For you to join Indiccom, there is a thorough and complete vetting process. And even in the execution of your duties, if your conduct on a scene is just too familiar with an officer, and we respect the officers, but that is something that, and I created the term ethical reinforcement, then that staff member would have to come in and explain, because you ought to be professional 100% of the times in execution of your duties, even if that officer is a church brother, a neighbor, etc. On your duties, professionalism and not familiarity, courtesy, respect, all the core values. So that's a little bit of background to Indiccom and how we function. Ladies and gentlemen, I have personnel from Indiccom, and I can't let them hide in the shadows. I have our senior PR officer, Miss Danielle Anderson. This is Danielle. So our reports and our tabling of documents to Parliament and the reports you hear on the news media regarding our investigations from Danielle. We have a chief investigator, Miss Kellyanne Gale. And beside Ms. Kellyanne Gale is Director of Complaints, Alicia Dawkins. Now, I don't mind how they look unassuming, but these are credible investigators. So some of the matters in recent times, in November, we had a matter that occurred. It was a fatal shooting in downtown. And within, and I trust my mathematics is correct, within 10 working days, Indiccom completed the investigation and the matter could have been put before the court. And so we commend the staff for their diligence, thoroughness, and speed. Recently, there was also a matter at Ribby's car park where, again, the investigative teams did everything, work around the clock, because sometimes there are circumstances that cause you not to halt for a minute. And that too was put before the court before 2 weeks had expired. For 2024, and ladies and gentlemen, we have to be frank, truthful. Not every case can be concluded in that duration. There are some matters you have to await the full ballistics examination, the biology examination if there are biological samples, the chemistry examination for the reports and certificates. And so that can take you quite a long time where the cases hinge. But those cases that we are able to act with dispatch, we do so in the interest of justice. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me just turn my attention. I think Mrs. Brissett is here also. I haven't seen Mrs. Brissett. I've been looking around. Mrs. Brissett. All right, Mrs. Brissett is standing. Right. Right. Mrs. Brissett is our acting director of complaints for the Central Region. So she traverses Clarendon, etc. You know, and we welcome you, Mrs. Brissett, and thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, when question time comes, you need not direct. Well, I won't even finish. You need not direct all the questions this end, but we'll answer. But they are supporting cast also. Right. Now, so it is my pleasure, Custos Green, to be able to address this august body. The JPs play an essential role in the system of justice, especially in our communities. JPs, you ensure that justice is not only done, but be seen to be done. And I know in my community, a JP is all things to all men. I'm sure everything touching property, touching disputes of every sort would come to your ears. And so I thank you because it is not an easy task. Plus, there are persons who might not even know timelines. So they will come to you very early, very late, just about any time. And so JPs, I commend you. I commend you. You must have God's blessings to carry out that role. But I just want to share some thoughts on the critical roles of your institution and our institution in upholding justice. Now, in listening to Custos Green and in listening to the Honorable Minister, you would accept that there is a divide in Jamaica in terms of accountability for the security forces. In other words, and I believe that the crime figures over a protracted period had caused some fellow Jamaicans to be of the view that the police should be given carte blanche authority to deal with what persons say criminals. In other words, there are persons who have been devastated by crime who believe that no questions should be asked when the security forces act in any particular way. I can understand, but I ask you as justices of the peace to shape the perspective of the nation that in a country of justice, regardless of a person's antecedent, station in life, they too are entitled to an inquiry into their demise if that demise took place. And it's better for the country that there is accountability and transparency. So there are persons who pro-police, anti-Indiccom, pro-Indiccom, anti-police. But let me just tell you from our perspective. Indiccom, we have sensitization sessions, and those are key performance indicators for our investigative teams. So our investigative teams must meet particular man-hours of sensitization with the security forces to explain to them the intent of Indiccom, what the act requires of us, and that we are doing our duty. We are not acting out of malice or ill will. Because we believe with a greater understanding, you can temper the hostility. Additionally, we also meet with our stakeholders at least once per year, face to face. So any issues that we extract from the public, we bring it to them. So we meet with the High Command of the JCF, the High Command of the JDF, and the High Command of the DCS, and we have other stakeholders that we meet with. We have also met with each of the presidents of the Police Federation, because sometimes the emotions may stem from the Federation end. And we have had dialogue with each of the presidents, from Mr. James Patriero right down to Sergeant Arlene McBean. So we have had dialogue again to explain our role, explain our mandate. And thank God, last year we had 24 rulings from the Director of Public Prosecutions. And in all, we have had cooperation. Yes, there are 3 of those that are pending arrests. And we're doing everything to ensure that those activities are carried through. But in terms of the acceptance and the compliance with Indiccom, so far last year was a good year. Even though we had 24 rulings from the DPP. This was the highest in the history of Indiccom, save and except for 2020. When 2020, there were also 24 rulings. So again, our investigative teams, we thank them. There are matters where the evidence does not rise to the threshold of a prosecution or discipline, and so be the case. But just to clarify, because you know, words sometimes carry multiple meanings, but we do not necessarily use the term, we do not say we justify the actions. There are instances, the Indiccom investigation may not establish that somebody is to be charged or disciplined. But the fact that you are not evidentially able to establish that does not put you in a position to justify. I trust the distinction is clear, ladies and gentlemen. Right? So you may not be in a position to recommend charge or recommend discipline, but the circumstances do not put you in a position where you can say it was justified. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as justices of the peace, you are a reference point of lawful conduct, equity, and community trust. You represent integrity, fairness, and transparency within our legal system. And in your role, you serve as critical connectors between the community and the law. And for this financial year, Indiccom, remember I told you about sensitization for the respective law enforcement bodies. But we have sought the budget to have sensitization for our communities. There are instances when we see interaction between the community and the security forces, and those interactions, at times, the citizens' response is ill-advised. And there are times when the law enforcement response we find to be unbecoming. And I put it that way because I believe Jamaicans would expect a higher standard of conduct from a trained professional. And that's only reasonable. But notwithstanding the absence of training, we will be seeking to establish community sensitization to indicate to the citizen their response to inquiries by the security forces, again, within courtesy, respect, etc. And that we'll be embarking on during this financial year, 2026. So the equipment so that we can descend on community centers, town halls, churches, etc., we hope to acquire in short order from this financial year, and we can meet with communities. Those community meetings will also provide a vehicle through which those operations by the security forces or those activities that irk the citizens, we can capture them, and in our consultation with the security forces, we can advise the security forces. So we are hoping that that will improve the communication between the respective parties. Now, ladies and gentlemen, at the heart of our justice system lies a fundamental truth, and that is justice is not a privilege, it is a right for all. It is often said that the approach to, there are instances of class bias. That is the complaint of many, that the conduct of operations in a particular geographical location may differ in another geographical location. Our dream and hope is that there is one standard of approach to the people of Jamaica. Your background, your place of residence, etc., should not determine how you are approached. So with us having the sensitization with the officers, having the sensitization with the community, we are hoping that we can find the medium to bridge the gap in the approach. That justice seems a blind commodity that treats everybody fairly. Now, JPs, I know you serve all the citizens of Jamaica, security forces and non-security force personnel alike. Your role is diverse, encompassing everything from issuing warrants for arrest and searches, authenticating documents and statements, to handling minor offenses, and also ensuring that rights are upheld at police stations and lockups. In every decision you make as a justice of the peace, be assured that your decisions can and do affect individual lives and families. So a tremendous responsibility. Now, the JPs are the community's direct link to the justice system, and your role is an important administrative function. But whether you're administering oaths, witnessing documents, or serving as a source of guidance in times of legal uncertainty, your role is not confined to administrative tasks. You are in many ways the embodiment of fairness, legitimacy, and impartiality in your communities. Your actions uphold the trust of our legal system. But, ladies and gentlemen, we cannot forget that the system within which we serve exists in a context. A Jamaica that, though proud of its achievements in making strides in safety and security, still grapples with challenges in its pursuit of true justice and law enforcement accountability. So upholding justice is not always straightforward. In the midst of objectivity and best intentions, there lies complexities, biases, and sometimes even systematic barriers that can hinder the pursuit of justice. And this is why collaboration is important. So, ladies and gentlemen, Indiccom is tasked with the essential duties of ensuring accountability in the actions taken by the JCF, Jamaica Constabulary Force, and the JDF when they are working in concert with the JCF. So the Indiccom Act empowers Indiccom to conduct investigations on matters involving the JCF, the JDF when they are working in tandem with the JCF, and the Department of Correctional Services. And again, all our staff should repeat daily that we must act independently, impartially, objectively, and thoroughly. And with all of that, they are sworn to confidentiality. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the incidents that we investigate include fatalities of any sort. And so persons who die in the custody of the state, even from apparent natural causes, require our investigation. So those are called deaths in custody. And when we refer to deaths in custody, not necessarily that they died in the jail cell or the prison cell, but they could have died at the hospital. They could have been at the hospital, but under police guard or DCS guard. It would still be in custody. So we inquire as to the circumstances of that deceased. We start at the intake records. When this person entered the penal system or the remand system, what was their health situation? If they had any pre-existing condition, was that recorded? Was medication available to the person? Was doctor's visits followed through? Was follow-up visits followed through, etc. Plus, the post-mortem, we take an interest in the post-mortem, and we look at all the medical records, all the incident records, and our forensic personnel visit the lockup, visit the cells, look for any human specimen or other evidential material that may be there. So, JPs, any unlawful search that you know of, you may advise personnel to make a report to Indiccom. Improper entry to property. There are times when the emergency powers give their security forces wide-ranging authority to enter premises and to detain where the person is considered to be a threat to public safety. But under ordinary circumstances, a warrant should be issued for the entry to someone's premises. And remember, there's a case that says a man's home is his castle, regardless of the size of that home, regardless of the location, regardless of the station in life. There's nobody whose station requires them that they are not treated with respect, and that a warrant is not produced, duly signed by law enforcement authority or a JP to indicate the particular search, to authorize it. Now, JPs, we're asking you to be diligent in your signing of documents. And what we would encourage is, for example, you know, sometimes it's good when you see a document signed by a JP. Today's what? 3rd April 2025. But in the investigative process, sometimes it would be helpful to know what time of the 3rd of April that document was signed. And so I would encourage you, on your signing, and many persons do it, you sign, date, and put a time. It will serve the interest of justice. It could corroborate an officer who said, I went there at 10. It could corroborate the citizen who said it happened at 12, etc. And sometimes time leaves open certain possibilities or kills certain possibilities. So evidentially, it is of value. So I would ask you just for a little diligence in that regard in inserting time. So the role of Indiccom, ladies and gentlemen, we are not enemies of the law enforcement bodies. Our mandate is to ensure that there is accountability and transparency. Why do we say that? Because a society can set up an institution, and that institution may act as if it is above the law. Not necessarily, I'm just speaking in general. So that office could be a political office, it could be a law enforcement office. So the Indiccom setup is to ensure that the rule of law prevails. When we say the rule of law, no office in the country rules. Law rules. So the rule of law. So we are ensuring that regardless of the title that goes with your name, then you are subject to the law. Law rules, the rule of law. Now, let me put it in context now with the security forces. The security forces are authorized with the power of arrest. So the security forces, on reasonable suspicion, can take you from your comfortable dwelling and take you in, put you into a cell. Right? They are authorized with the power of arrest. the security forces are tooled with high-powered weapons and sometimes with small arms, depending on the nature. Because to be a security officer in any of the establishments is a challenging endeavor. But those powers must have an oversight, and that is where Indiccom comes in, to ensure that the execution of those powers and from the preamble to the act do not lead to abuse, injury, or fatality. So the law enforcement officer, once he's in an incident that results in death or injury, he has a duty, he or she, to report it within 24 hours. And that's to report it forthright. That's the injury or death. Forthright. So there's no delay where it's injury or death. But all other cases within 24 hours, ladies and gentlemen. Now, if an officer does something to obstruct Indiccom, then our section 33 of our act means Indiccom can proffer charge against that officer. Just a little bit of technicality there. The Privy Council says, Indiccom, investigate the conduct of security forces, DCS, JDF, JCF, and on the completion of your investigation, you submit the file to the yes man, now you speak stronger than that. When you write, you talk loud, you know, talk loud and strong. Right. So the Privy Council says, submit your file to the office of the DPP. But where the officer obstructs, we want it to say station diary, incident records diary. We want it to say the prisoner charge and property book, and somebody hiding it, tear out the leaf, etc. Then Indiccom can prosecute those matters. So you don't really have to submit it to the DPP. But the incidents that happen, so that would be just the obstruction, you know. But the incidents that cause injury, cause death, cause abuse, must go to the DPP. And for tidiness, for most matters, we just submit them to the DPP. And so we have had a few, and in fact, one of those cases was in central Jamaica. The officer, I think, gave a challenge in providing a statement. I think that was the case, Kelly, that went before the judge in the parish court, and there was a fine of 800,000 in that case in central Jamaica. We have put, when I looked at the data, about 4 cases. And there was one also that we had in the western end of the island where the officer was being transferred from here to there, just couldn't make the contact, and again, we had to proffer a charge. So the cases that we have, the prosecutorial authority, ladies and gentlemen, is the office of the DPP. But if I might just, in coming to a close, just indicate to you some of the recent numbers. In 2024, which is the year just concluded, there were 189 fatalities involving the security forces. 189. That was up from 155 in 2023. Since 2025, and we are now at April 3, right? We have had 85 fatalities. Now, you know, the media is always anxious for Indiccom's remarks and comments, and we can understand. But one bait we will not take is that to make any comment before our investigation. The law says we have to be independent, objective, and impartial So we have to be judicious in our comments. So we can't make a rush to judgment statement and then you investigate. So you have to keep your shirt buttoned, right? But what we have said is that the figures are high because our Constitution and our Charter of Fundamental Rights and Freedom list the right to life as the first right that was listed in Section 13 was the right to life. Now, we are not saying that there are not instances when the security forces may not act in a particular way, because the same law for self-defense that is available to the citizen, to you as a JP, to the technician, to everybody, is the same law of self-defense that is available to the law enforcement bodies. The law puts some restraint on self-defense. So a person can use a rubber band and shoot you, and you take a gun and shoot him, right? That would be excessive force. So the law put, boundaries on that. But in terms of commentary, we do not comment on the particular incident. Our recommendation is at the end of the investigation, and then we make the recommendation. Now, the DPP, as the authority to make the rulings, I would say we are about 80% in agreement. So 8 out of every 10 recommendations that Indiccom would make the DPP. So sometimes there's a 20%, sometimes at 10%. But for the most times, there seems to be consensus in that regard. So as I indicated, up to the 2nd of April, 85 persons were fatally injured in confrontation with the security forces. So this is the 3rd of April. When we look at the data, at the end of March, which is just a few days ago, 81 persons were fatally injured. And we reached 81 in 2023 in July. And now we are at the end of March, we are at 81. So that is the concern. In other words, we're saying the security forces can review their activities to decide whether something can be done differently to ensure that there is less loss of life. So we find the numbers to be high, but we do not make a conclusionary comment on the incident. And ladies and gentlemen, this brings in now the matter of body-worn cameras. Indiccom has been airing this concern for maybe a decade or more. And at 2020, you felt it was close to happen. And then we are still not there in the quantum that we desire. From our figures last year, I believe only one incident that the officer had reported that he had body-worn camera, but unfortunately hadn't turned it on. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the body-worn cameras, just submit a body-worn cameras to the court. The court goes through a rigorous test. So it is unlikely to prejudice citizen, prejudice officer. The court states that for the footage from the body-worn camera to be admitted, you have to establish that the instrument of recording was in good working order. So in other words, you can't use something where sometimes it works, sometimes it chip out, sometimes it chip in to record, and the court accepts it. The court must identify the author, the maker. And to me, there's logic to that, because the author or the maker would be interrogated, and not in a pejorative sense. Question then, as to whether any editing, any tampering took place. If the court is satisfied that this footage is good and of high integrity, it is admissible. What the body-worn camera footage provides the court, and before it comes to court, remember it can be evidential material for the police themselves, for Indiccom, and then admissibility when it comes to the court. So it provides the investigator with an independent document of what transpired. Ladies and gentlemen, the human being in the witness box, after I'm swear on the Bible, he remembers some things and he don't remember some things. And sometimes in my view, it could very well be selective recollection. But the camera, the footage, just capture everything. Who walk past it show you. Who come the other way it show you. It now say, well, me say who go that way, but me never work when the person will go back the other way. Right? It gives you a complete picture. It will show you what happened leading up to the incident. Because in many instances, there's dialogue, there's words, and them words become some weapon pull, could be baton, could be citizen pull, stone, etc. So again, we're speaking fairly. That camera will show you what happened leading up to the incident, show you what transpired during the incident, and show you what happened after the incident. Because, ladies and gentlemen, if somebody threatened the law enforcement officer, pull a gun, right? And in trying to do what he's doing, the gun dropped over in a precipice. That threat would have dissipated, right? So even if the person had a firearm, when the threat has dissipated, this is where now self-defense is no longer applicable. But as long as the person poses a threat to life, limb, body, then the citizen, the officer, likewise can defend him or herself. But when the threat, for whatever reason, diminishes, if the man had the gun, frightened, fling it away, then he should be taken into custody. And not only that, if he's injured, he should be taken to get medical treatment quickly. So the camera can show you what happened before, during, and after. Because remember, the law enforcement bodies, they are our protectors. And all this is, you see, the officer who complies with the law has nothing to fear with Indiccom. Nothing to fear. So what we seek to do is to identify those matters where the law was not followed, ladies and gentlemen. And so we ask the JPs to be a voice for the implementation of the body-worn cameras. And we specifically state that the law enforcement bodies, we have said that to the law enforcement bodies themselves, going on planned operations ought to be equipped with body-worn cameras. The planned operation is totally within the execution of the security forces. They decide when, they decide where they are going, they decide where they drive, when drive go there, they decide what time they are going, whether 1 a.m. or 4 p.m. They decide how to approach the building. So all the planning, and I know things can happen which weren't planned, right? But the circumstances would reveal that, if that is the case. So we're saying, and we found that 40% of the fatal shooting incidents in 2024 were as a result of police planned operations. And that is why we repeat the call that one of the first groups within the law enforcement bodies to be equipped should be the planned operations. So So, ladies and gentlemen, I think I've detained you long enough. There's more we can say, but we'll leave that for question and answers. Thank you very much.
Wow, food for thought. Thank you very much, Mr. Faulkner. And I know that there are going to be some burning questions. I look at the faces and I see them. So the floor is now open for the questions and answering session. We have a hand. Please come forward. Those for questions, could you kindly come forward?
Good evening. My name is Stephen Williams, a newly commissioned JP from the district of Riches in the parish of Clarendon, also a councillor in the Clarendon Municipal Corporation. In Custos Green presentation, I hear he made mention of 98 JPs who have outstanding filing and 13 JPs who need to get their new stamp. Is that in the parish of Manchester or in the island of Jamaica?
I can only speak for Manchester. That covers Manchester.
Good evening, everyone. So I'm Khalil Hutchinson, also a newly commissioned JP. My question is relating to the sensitization sessions, the community sessions. What would that involve? And I have a follow-up to that.
Good afternoon, everyone. The sensitization sessions that we have been conducting thus far, as the commissioner indicates, is predominantly with the JCF, but we are JCF, JDF, and DCS. We are moving now to undertake sensitizations for the community, and what we hope to achieve is to go to the various community groups. We hope that we will get invitations, so that's why we are throwing it out there, so we can answer all the questions that persons have, because believe it or not, there are a lot of community members who don't understand what Indiccom is about. And a lot of questions I will be asked at times is, why is it that Indiccom don't investigate when an officer is injured? And I will tell persons, but it is not the mandate of Indiccom. Indiccom, the remit of Indiccom is to investigate the security forces. So we cannot investigate an incident against a police officer by a civilian. Additionally, what the sensitization in the community would do is to also to sensitize and to educate the community members as to how they should approach the police. There are incidences and we have investigations where we have seen incidences arising out of persons not cooperating with the police. So if the police stop a car and they start that dialogue and persons will get aggressive, probably they're in a bad mood or something, and they don't cooperate with the police officers. So in those circumstances, we often encourage persons to comply and then complain, because a lot of things can come out of not complying, which will many times not be in the best interest of the citizen.
So my second part, well, I'm a teacher by profession. So my question, are you looking to sensitize schools?
Definitely, because we've seen a number of cases where we have fatal shootings, and some of the persons that have been shot and killed by the police are school-age children. We have persons as young as 16 who have been fatally shot by the police, so we have to also get into the school to sensitize them, because the reality is that the age that we see now of persons who are getting involved you're getting younger and younger. So also they will have contact with the police officers more often. So we also have to sensitize young persons as to how they need to interact with the police.
Thank you, Ms. Gill. And in fact, JP, recently we were at a symposium, and there was a commissioner of police from Seattle, and there was an oversight expert from the United States. And they are of the view that the best way to change behavior, and part of the United States experience is racism, but thank God we encounter the classism, not necessarily the racism. But they are of the view, the expert, that sensitizing children may be one of the best forms of changing behavior. So during Read Across Jamaica week, even though Indiccom is busy and you know why, we tend, and Mrs. Brissett's team tend to go to the schools in central Jamaica, and they go to boys' days when the schools have boys' days to help sensitize them. And we sort of strategically select the schools. We know an area where there was a fatal shooting, the area was irate, without any fanfare, etc. We go, we present books, and we read for the children, and we explain the role of Indiccom. So we would be accepting of any invitation. So. Right, good. Yes. Yes.
We want to welcome our online viewers, and we're also open to questions from these viewers. Are there any online questions? Okay, I have a question here. Mention was made of the composition of Indiccom. Are there former members of the security forces who are now employed to Indiccom in the capacity as a civilian?
Right. Well, as you know, in any jurisdiction, in terms of the investigative qualifications, you do not have a large pool. So persons who sometimes, many years ago, we have had persons who served in Cayman Islands, in the security forces, Bermuda, etc., and Jamaica, but we do a strict vetting, and who in some years past were members of the security forces. We would not stop them from applying, but they would have to be subject to the intensive vetting to ensure that that separation is in reality.
Thank you very much for the response, Mr. Faulkner. Good afternoon, everyone. Ricardo Smith, senior educator, social scientist, a prospective justice of the peace. My question is in relation to the body cameras for the security personnel. You made mention of the fact that it is essential that they wear the body cameras. I have no issues with body cameras, but my question is, how would the use of body cameras compromise the safety of the officers while they are conducting these operations? Because security cameras have a beacon that blinks and indicates location while you're on operation, especially those that are early in the morning. So how would you suggest a workaround, or how will you implement this plan, rollout of these body cameras? Thank you.
Right, thanks for that question. And your concern for the safety of the officers are not at variance with our concerns. But from our, again, data is the best informant as to policy and as to strategy and as to perspective. Remember I told you approximately 76 of the 189 fatalities, which worked out to 40% of the fatalities were from planned operations. And I would ask my team to forgive me, but I do not believe in any of those instances the officers' well-being or health was compromised. We have had officers who report falling and getting injured, but that kind of combat we do not see in the data, respectfully. And we have 81 so far for this year, and we do not see that kind of combat that would make us think again. And just to indicate to you that some states in the United States, the failure to wear a body-worn camera is an offense. So the officer would have to have a cogent explanation to state why it is not there. So Jamaica is somewhat behind, and we think at times there was an officer there was an early morning attack by about 3 or 4 men, and a camera footage indicated that the officer was in the right. Camera footage. And on the other hand, there are camera footage that have also indicated when the officers were not acting within the training and force orders. Yes.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Very good presentation. My question, the name is Dexter Pusey, just a Justice of the Peace. Can members of the security forces or agents of the state refuse to answer questions?
All right, Miss Brissett, you want to? Yes. Right. So Mrs. Brissett, Director of Complaints Acting, will provide a response. I'll add my perspective.
Yes. The officers can refuse to answer questions. If we are doing an interview that is a suspect interview, the officer can ideally, as they say, refuse to answer questions, but this is under the guidance of their counsel or their attorney. In a situation where we are conducting what we call a Section 21 interview, then the officer should answer the questions. They are not questions that will incriminate them, and if indeed a question is asked which has an incriminatory nature, the presiding official, who is an employee of Indiccom, and the counsel or the attorney who sits in that interview with the concerned officer, they can object to a question being asked if it indeed felt that the question is incriminatory. So, all in all, the officers can object to answering questions. They can blatantly refuse, but that is in a situation where they are doing a suspect interview. That is a little different from the Section 21 of the Indiccom Act interview.
Thank you, Mrs. Brissett. So what Mrs. Brissett has done is to explain to you 2 circumstances when the officer will be called in by Indiccom. 2 circumstances. Note, Mrs. Brissett explained them. 1, a shooting happens. Indiccom is informed. The law does not allow the officer to say, "Me not say nothing." Right? You are inquiring what happened. So that is the Section 21 interview. So you're not being treated, you're just being treated as someone who was part of something that happened, and we're asking you what happened. So you're required to give a statement which will not necessarily be tendered into evidence. But on Indiccom investigating, you're getting statements from other officers. You're getting statements from soldiers. And you're getting statements from civilians. And you elevate this officer to being a suspect, then you're going to do now what they call a judge's rule interview, a Q&A, question and answer. Once the officer becomes a suspect, all the privileges that any suspect, where you don't have to answer, you can just give your name, your age, and your address, and refuse to answer. The officer has that right during that time. And they would have had counsel at the judge's rule interview where there would be a suspect. So those are the two categories. So to come and say what happened, they are required by law, the section 21, to state what happened. Because I don't know what would happen to any country if the security forces were to conduct themselves and there's no means by which they are saying what happened. Right, so that is the situation. All in the interest of the people of Jamaica and the officers themselves.
Okay, thank you very much, Commissioner, for such a lovely presentation. I just want to ask 3 questions. In the interim of time, I'll share all 3 one time. So the first question is, can a member of the Jamaica Defense Force arrest, stop a motor vehicle, or search a vehicle in the absence of a police officer? Number 2, do citizens have the right to know the name, perhaps the badge number and other relative information of police officers during a motor vehicle stop, if needed? And number 3, what should a citizen do in the event of an officer who would like to search their property, perhaps their motor vehicle, without a warrant or a reasonable cause? Thank you.
I believe you went a little fast because the first question, just remind me what the first question was again, please. We were just listening around. Okay, so JDF. The JDF, we have the remit to investigate the soldiers, but our investigation of the soldiers comes when it is that they're working jointly with the police, or if they're working under those special conditions where they are given the authority of a constable, so in like a ZOZO or a zone of special operations, those kind of cases. So can a soldier arrest, detain? Yes, they can detain a person once they're operating within the ZOZO or the SOE. They can detain a person if they're working jointly with the police, but it is expected that they will hand the person over to the police at the earliest possible time. So it's not that they will take a civilian back to camp and lock them down. So they will hand over the civilian to the police.
Second part of the question was something to the effect of, does the citizen have a right to know the name or badge number of the police officers when there is a stop vehicle checkpoint? Yes. Citizens do have a right to know and make inquiries about the regulation number and the name of the officers. But how many of those persons do get the required answer? It's not a situation that you can force them to do it. They should be doing it because, as a matter of fact, they should be wearing their badge that identifies them in terms of a name, badge number. But a lot of the times when they are wearing the vests, the ballistic vest and the other vest that they wear, the badge is obscured. And this leads to citizens asking for the name and badge number of these officers. Many times I can tell you, they don't get it. Sometimes they will get a one name. And the police themselves will tell you it's only dog one them know have one name. But they will tell the citizens, Jermaine, and that's it, no badge number. If they go to the station, unless they see the officer and say, this is the officer that stopped me, I need to know their name, and then you are going to get, they get rebuffs, I can tell you. But they do have a right to ask, and they do have a right to know. But how much information they get, that's the other question. All right?
Right. Thank you, Mrs. Brissett. And that touches on the question of identity. And many times, the investigative team has to work backwards in terms of identity. So if, for example, you get a vehicle number, then you have to trace that to find out the dispatch, who were on the team, etc. So I believe the security forces have a duty to reveal their identity. If not, you shroud your activity with suspicion, if that is being concealed.
All right, I have some questions here from our online viewers, but I'll speak from here for the benefit of everyone here. And of course, there are many commendations in order for the presentations made by Indiccom. Is Indiccom represented in all the parishes or only in the city? And I take city meaning Kingston. That's one question.
Yes. Well, Custos, we have regional office on Bromelia Road at the Cobblestone Plaza, which is our central office, and we have our office at Queens Drive, Concourse Plaza near the airport in Montego Bay. So we operate from 3 points.
Thank you. To the extent that the police has indicated that support infrastructure is not yet available for the body-worn camera, what timeline would be reasonable?
Well, in that case, Custos, we do not believe we ought to set a timeline. In terms of the backroom equipment, there are processes that must be followed in terms of procurement. The procurement guidelines are extensive. But the lobbying and the advocacy has been going on for quite some time. And so we do not set a timeline, but we ask that the body-worn cameras be implemented at the earliest in the interest, and I must repeat, for accountability and transparency.
I'm seeing a question here from someone who identified herself as a JP, Miss Cousins. Your question was answered by Minister Chuck. So please check the online communication for the answer to your question. What is the process required to get our security officers to wear cameras as a part of the uniform? Is the government in support of body-worn cameras?
Right, so any concern that the Commission has, the Indiccom Act requires us to make a report to Parliament, and that we have done. So for example, there was a time when the response to disciplinary charges were not to our suit, and we provided a comprehensive report. So that's what the Act requires. Any malady that we identify, Custos, we provide a report to Parliament, which we have done.
I think this is the final question I have from our online viewers. Will Justice of the Peace get a chance to have a copy of Indicom's Code of Conduct?
Well, the Indicom Act is our guiding document. And external to that, we have our core values, which we state from time to time. And where our staff departs from any value that we do not share, then there's a process. The last process we did took us nearly 1 year because, you know, it involves lawyers, etc. And where that process went through and there was separation.
Good afternoon. Kavian Allen is the name. I have 3 questions. Number 1, what internal mechanisms do you use to gauge your effectiveness? And number 2, when the Privy Council ruled on that matter in 2020 or 2021, what section of the Indicom Act was used asking the Privy Council as to whether or not if you have the power of arrest? Number 3, the Integrity Commission is a commission of Parliament like Indicom, and there is an oversight committee that reviews the reports that are submitted to the Parliament, and also they also review the current IC Act to make critical amendments. Why isn't there also an oversight committee of the Parliament to assess and also to evaluate the work of Indicom?
Right, thank you for those questions. Right, so Indicom, as I indicated to you, we are a commission of Parliament. So we report to Parliament, and you will observe that we give quarterly reports, so for the year. Plus, Indicom will give reports on the incidents that we are investigating. You know, the IC has some limitations. So from time to time, we are accessible to the media and the public, and we do give the reports. We are open to 2 committees of Parliament. One, when our budget is being determined, we can be called before the Standing Finance Committee of Parliament, and we went there recently. And previously, maybe 20 or 23, we were called and interrogated by a committee of Parliament which comprised both opposition and government. So we are always ready to make ourselves available. But as I indicate to you, in terms of legislative changes, we administratively channel those through the Ministry of Justice. Right, so, you know, Mr. Justice of the Peace, one thing we do not seek to do is to measure success by conviction. Our mantra is that we strive for truth. So in 2024, as we are at the recent datas, we actually brought 2 cases per month to the court. April 1, we just got report of another ruling for charge. But there are certain processes that you have to put in place before you make the public announcement. So while the Privy Council states that Indicom, you investigate, you make your submission, the internal investigation unit of the security forces have to do the arrest, right? So we do not do the arrest, and then, you know, we act on it to put it before the court. So for last year, we were at a rate of 2 cases per month. For last year, 9 fatalities involving 10 lives were put before the court. It involved 10 JCF officers for 8 fatalities and 1 JDF officer for a fatality on Charles Street that we put before the court. And then we put others before the court, road deaths, assaults. So 3 Department of Corrections officers were charged, mainly assault. And in terms of the DCS, we observed that sometimes the use of the baton was being repeated. And so we have a new case management system where we have added to it, once a citizen gets hit in the head with the baton, we capture that as special data, because the baton itself indicates to you that this baton can cause death, serious injuries, etc. So we have even added that category in our investigation, head injuries for the citizen. So as I indicated, 3 DCS officers, that's in the last 12 months, 10 JCF officers, a total of 24 officers. 3 officers are pending arrest, and that's a work in progress.
Two more questions from our online viewers. Good afternoon, everyone. This is an informative and timely presentation. I anticipate closer collaboration on a follow-up meeting at the local JP community meeting. You need to provide a response to that. I'll proceed with the second one. I think this is really for the police, but I have a duty to read the questions. If a private motor car was sold to a specified buyer, and the buyer was asked to let them travel to their location and return the plates later, but it never happened, what can the police do in that regard? I'll ask him to answer that question. Yes. So what they asked JP sensitization sessions in the community.
Yes.
And what they can do if the person does return plates.
Right. Right. You know, from time to time, Indicom will get the queries. And what we do, we make ourselves available to the taxi associations, because we had also noted that in 2023, we had about 30 reports from transport operators. So we said transport operators, because not necessarily taxi, sometimes buses, etc. So we meet with them. And from time to time, a number of matters will come to us, including me park at a yellow, white line, and etc. So some of those matters, to be fair, are not the kind of matters that the Indicom Act would have contemplated for us to intervene in. Custos. And the matter with the motor vehicle, if it involves any fraud, etc., then it can go to CTAC, or it can go to the regular police unit for investigation. But if it does not show some abuse, and there are persons who also maybe have a relative who is a police officer, and they have a property dispute, and it's brought to Indicom. So we have to, you know, in a nice way indicate that it doesn't necessarily, even though it involves a security officer, falls within our remit, and we classify that as unpursued, but we document it, because that customer can take an hour and a half for you to gather the complaint, etc. So it's all documented. So at the end of the year, we can give you those data also.
Good afternoon. I am Andre Pasley, a Justice of the Peace from Clarendon. My question to you, it's a suggestion, Mr. Commissioner. Can Indiccom go on some of these planned operations and observe, which this can allow the officers to wear the body-worn camera and to prevent any loss of life or injuries to both parties?
Sometimes that suggestion is given to us, but sort of tongue-in-cheek, you know. You know, when Indiccom takes particular actions that we must by law, persons would say, you forgot upon the operation too. But anyway, remember, the law enforcement activities are, the officers have received special training, etc. I'm not sure if that's the time when, all right, let take the police out of it. If I'm at my primary school in Balatlava and me and my teacher walk in the schoolyard and me see my friend, me not hit him that time. Right? Right? So I'm not sure. The thing is, I'm not sure whether it would, what value it would give. You know, I understand the question, but persons say that usually to say that the law enforcement activity is dangerous, which we accept. We accept that it can be, and the danger can spring on you. But that doesn't stop the fact that we are still accountable. And not, remember, you know, the vast majority of officers do not have a case at Indiccom. And we have published the reports where there are officers involved in 13, 14, 15 matters, because sometimes, yeah, right, because sometimes we believe sometimes that officer may need a break. You don't know what is happening to the officer when his name is repeatedly in complaints, and it should be of some guide to the police high command just to inquire what's happening to this officer, why his name is in repeated complaints. So we tabulate all of that. We tabulate from it start at assault, till it go to a shooting injury, till it go to a fatality, till it go to 2 fatality, 3 fatality.
All right, good afternoon, everyone.
Right, this is Mrs. Alicia Dawkins, Director of Complaints.
All right, to answer the question of the gentleman from Clarendon, yes, to answer the question posed by the gentleman from Clarendon. All right, Indiccom is a body that investigates the actions of the police officer. So something has to happen before we investigate. So we cannot go on an operation with a police officer. So are you clear now? Because from time to time when I go out and do sensitization sessions with police officers, these are questions that they ask us. For us, they are saying we should understand their role, so they want us to come and see what they do. So we have to be explaining to them, remember, we are a reactive group. We respond after an incident.
Discussions and questions were quite apt. Are there any other questions? Very well. Of course, the JP embodies the values of community service, impartiality, and integrity. How to create trust? We must be reliable and consistent. We must show empathy. We must be transparent and accountable. How are we accountable? The word transparency comes up again. We have to be responsible. We have to show fairness. And we also have to be answerable to members of our communities. By entrusting accountability, organizations can build a trust and grow positively. So trust and accountability, they go hand in hand. I want to thank the following persons. I want to thank our Custos, and he's a hard-working Custos Green, and I'm honored to be led by him. We want to thank the Honorable Delroy Chuck, who gave us some food for thought, and he also reminded us of the roles we, as justices of the peace, must play. We want to thank Mr. Hugh Faulkner and his team. Could you just stand and give them a round of applause? And I'm also taking you to task. The sensitization for the community, we're inviting you to ensure that we are first on your list. Thank you very kindly. We want to thank the Justices of the Peace who came out, members of the media, community members. We want to thank CTC for hosting us. We want to thank, were there any members of the security forces? We want to thank them if there were any members. Refreshments will be served afterwards. So we'll just venture to the cafeteria where you will be refreshed. Mrs. Green, I saw Mrs. Green. We want to thank Mrs. Green for always giving the support behind every, or beside every successful man. Beside, not behind, there is a woman, and we want to thank Mrs. Green for giving the support she has given to the Custos.
Everybody knows Mrs. Green? No? Please stand, Mrs. Green. That's an order from the Custos. Commissioner, there are quite a number of questions, but they're more made for the police. So I'll skip those. But there's a question from the audience, if JP can sign for someone with the same surname. Did I get it correctly? Yes. Nothing is wrong with that as long as there's no conflict of interest where you're signing for a family member and you can speak to either the integrity or verify anything, like a signature of that person, that's fine. Did I answer you satisfactorily? All right. I really want to add my bit of thank you. Not that she didn't do well, but I have to add my bit to our Commissioner of Indiccom and his team for coming to Manchester. And I'm going to invite Mrs. Green to express our appreciation to Commissioner Faulkner. Sir?
This bag says, age gets better with wine. But we didn't give you wine, we gave you rum. Oh. Because Mandeville is cold, and but please don't drink it before you go back to Kingston.
Oh, not at all.
Wait until you reach Kingston, and then you get warm. Right. Because we know you're a little chilly here, because you're not used to this kind of a temperature. Yes. But thank you very much. Now we have a better understanding as to how JPs and Indiccom will work. And I'm sure that it will benefit both of us to work together and to make sure that we have a safer and accountable JCF force. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Green, and to the JPs of Manchester and to the Custos. I thank you on behalf of my team. Okay, it will be shared.
Thank you, and travel safely as you go. JPs and fellow members, I'm just taking a line from our anthem. Let justice, truth, and justice be ours forever. Jamaica land we love. Have a good one.
This one is just for a little side thing. When this gentleman, Hugh Faulkner, is not talking about body-worn cameras and carrying out investigations and police shootings, he carries another name. Can anyone tell me who that is? What that name is? Huh? Go ahead. Yes, man. And if we had behaved ourselves, we would drop to a tune for us this evening. I was really delighted to know that he is Hugo Barrington. You didn't know that? You didn't know that? And we know Hugo Barrington, right? We know about him. We have him right here. Let him sing. Lordy, Lordy. You have to say something, sir.
You know, Custos hadn't seen this part on the program. So all I can say is that I wasn't expecting this, falling in love this way. Out of the blue, you stole my heart. Bullseye, you hit me. Well, the song that everybody knows is the Lordy, Lordy, we love to party. Whoa, whoa, oh, oh, oh. So hear me grow the people. Love you.
You will hear more of him soon in Manchester. All right, thank you very much.